Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Dynasty After Dark. We're your hosts, Calvin Timms and Dale Terry, and we're going through the Cincinnati Bengals offseason changes, recapping all the changes for you guys here today. You can find us over on Twitter at TDC_Calvin, at Dynasty_Dale. And if you guys are new, this is your first video, welcome in. We're doing all 32 teams the entire month of July. So this is the second division we're hitting. If we haven't got to your team or there's another team you're interested in, it's going to be coming. If it hasn't come out yet. If you have another team that has come out, make sure you go and watch that video as well. We're putting a lot of time and effort into these videos, so hopefully you guys like them. If there's any comments or any changes or requests, make sure you leave that down in the comments below. While you're there, if you can, just like, comment, subscribe. It takes you like 10 seconds to do that, so please do that for us. It helps with the algorithm and gets the podcast out to more people, which is what we're all just trying to do. We're just trying to grow this podcast the entire off season. So hopefully you guys like this content. Dale, how we doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I am very excited to talk about the team I watched the most as a child, unfortunately, and they were
They were
horrific,
bad for a
but
long time.
they were horrific when I was a kid, and I had to watch them every damn Sunday,
Yeah. That's like me right
unfortunately.
now with the Steelers and the Colts. It's just like, oh, this is painful.
Well, it was very painful to watch the Bengals implode every Sunday. So
That's why I'm excited that the lines are actually kind of good now.
yeah,
So that
I
we
agree.
get them all the time too. So it's fun to kind of have a team that's decent. But
And then the
that
Bears
said,
are relevant. So
yeah,
yeah,
that's true.
yeah.
Well, they're at least fun to watch.
Yes,
um,
yes.
All right, so that said, we're going through the Cincinnati Bengals today, recapping all of their changes. And if this is your first time, the format that we're going through here, we're going to go through the coaching changes first, then we're going to go through the free agents that they added, the guys that they lost in the offseason, and then going through their draft. And then at the end of the podcast, we're going to talk through all the skill players and give our thoughts on them for this upcoming season. So we'll just jump right into it. Coaching changes, luckily, ding, 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 no changes. Let's go. Everything's going to
Yeah.
be, everything you saw in 2022, you're going to see in 2023, hopefully. The Bengals,
Hopefully.
though, they've been on the rise for the last couple of years. And I know the Bengals are the perfect example of why I think that people need to be more patient with head coaches. If you can show that you're at least capable, you know what I mean, as a head coach, you should give them a little bit of a leash, because this is the problem with like the Browns, right? When they were changing coaches every year, you're not giving those guys any chance to do anything productive, right? But Zach Taylor, he's really grown into it seems like a pretty solid head coach. And, it definitely helps that he has someone like Joe Burrow on this team, but he's been making good moves. He's gotten them better and better every single year. So you'll love to see that for the Bengals, and it's a good time to be a Bengals fan.
Yeah, no, I agree. And personally, I think a lot of it comes down to Joey B being that guy
Right.
personally. And I'm not sure how much Zach Taylor's doing, but he's at least doing it right for Joey Burrow.
Yeah, I
So
mean, yeah, it's not the
he
best
is.
offense, and Joe Burrow probably overcomes a few of those flaws, right?
Yes,
But I mean, it could definitely be worse, right? You could be
it could.
you could be the
It could.
Jets, right? So just terrible forever. So all right, so we're going to go into the free agents now and talk about the guys that they signed, the guys that they re-signed. For the most part, they brought in they had a fairly quiet offseason. The biggest thing that they did for the second year in a row was really hammer that offensive line, which you love to see that. Joe Burrow has gotten beaten up pretty hard the last couple of years,
Hmm.
and I still get a lot of crap sometimes because I thought that they should have taken Penei Sewell over Jamar Chase. Obviously, the people that were saying Jamar Chase is the better pick, they have won that argument. Although, to be fair to me, Penei Sewell also looks like a stud for an offensive
He
lineman too.
does.
So
He does.
the good news is I think it was a pick your poison, and you couldn't really go wrong. But Jamar Chase is definitely a difference maker for this team. But no, they brought in Cody Ford from the Arizona Cardinals, who's an offensive guard there. They brought in a left tackle I think it's left tackle, Orlando Brown Jr. from the
Hmm.
Kansas City Chiefs, which is a huge signing. They signed him
It's
to a
huge.
massive contract. They brought in Trevor Siemian to kind of be a depth guy there. Terrell Basham from the Titans as a defensive end. My sleeper pick of every single year, Irv Smith Jr. at tight end. I just want to see this guy play a season without getting hurt. He's always had like freak injuries, man.
I don't believe it's physically possible for him to not get hurt.
I'm doubting it too. I'm starting to doubt it too. They brought in Sidney Jones, cornerback from the Raiders. I like this low-key kind of good addition to their defense. Nick Scott was a safety that they brought in. They re-signed their tight end Drew Sample. They re-signed Max Sharping, an offensive guard, safety Michael Thomas, wide receiver Trent Taylor, cornerback Jalen Davis, Jermaine Pratt, linebacker, and Travion Williams, running back there. Mostly it was pretty much status quo. Irv Smith, I actually low-key really like that signing. We'll talk about him in a little bit. But offensive line is the priority, making sure that the defense doesn't fall apart. And other than that, they had a few losses we'll talk about here in just 1 second. But what do you think about their signings that they made?
I really believe they definitely shored up that offensive line. I know when that signing happened with Orlando Brown Jr. that their other tackle that they got, what's his name? His name is Jonah Williams.
Yes.
Well, he was pretty upset with that.
Right.
Which I understand.
It's going to be interesting. He's going to be going to the right side.
Yeah, he's going to be going to the right side, which I believe was his natural position when he was at Alabama anyways.
Right. It's been a long time, though.
Yeah. Well, he's going into his 5th year, I believe.
Right.
So, it's going to be interesting to see their offensive lineman rotation. I think they finally have people that they feel more comfortable with,
right.
And I think that's definitely what they needed to do. I'm a little bit concerned with some of their departures a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, one big one in particular that we'll get to here in a second.
Okay. So yeah, we'll just talk about the guys that they lost really quickly. So they lost both safeties, Von Bell and Jesse Bates. This was pretty huge. Their defense took a little bit of a hammering this offseason.
Yeah.
They lost cornerback Trey Flowers, cornerback Chris Lamons, cornerback Eli Apple. Lamons and Apple haven't signed anywhere yet, so they might be able to bring those guys back on a deal. Running back Samaje Perine, Hayden Hurst, tight end, and quarterback Brandon Allen. So which one of them was your...
I was gonna say that it was Samaje Perine, because
it's a big loss. I agree.
It really is, because he was the preferred back in the AFC Championship game,
right?
Over Mixon, and with Mixon's contract, with his potential league issues and league and legal issues, it's gonna be interesting to see what the Bengals do, but they are prone to keep their guys and to kind of keep things.
Yeah.
They're
very loyal organization.
They are
Which you got to respect it. Most teams out there aren't very loyal. Again, a lot of teams probably would have fired the head coach after year one.
Yeah.
Zach Taylor, because it wasn't the best offense in year one, and not a lot of guys get a lot of leash like that anymore.
I think it helps that the Bengals organization as a whole is cheap. They just are. They just are. So, I feel that helps, but yeah, he is.
Oh my!
So, I also do feel that Hayden Hurst is a big loss too. I don't think Irv Smith is an upgrade.
I don't think he's a downgrade though.
I think it's a very lateral move.
Right.
I get it, but I would rather have the guy that I know is going to be on the field than the guy that's going to be on the sideline and in sweats.
Yeah, it's possible.
So
again, we'll talk about Irv Smith in just 1 minute. So quickly, we'll talk about the draft here. Miles Murphy was their first round selection, defensive end out of Clemson. Round 2, cornerback DJ Turner out of Michigan. Round 3, Jordan Battle, another safety to replace one of their guys from Alabama. Wide receiver Charlie Jones out of Purdue in the 4th round. This was low key. A lot of people like that signing there. Chase Brown in the 5th. Running back out of Illinois, Andre Osavas.
I like that one too.
Wide receiver out of Princeton, Brad Robbins, punter. Okay, who cares? DJ Ivy, cornerback out of Miami in the 7th. So, grabbing some skill players later on in this draft, Again, it was just more of a status quo. Just make sure the wheels stay on the cart, and we're
Mm-hmm.
going for the AFC title and making it back to the Super Bowl this upcoming year. So,
Yeah.
again, we already talked about the offensive line a little bit. I think it's going to be one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. Personally, I think it's going to be top 10, maybe even top 5. It's a really good group of guys. So I think it's going to make a pretty big step forward. You saw at points last year that there were some injuries, so things started to, and that's why they hit it hard again this last offseason, right? So they're just making sure that they, like you said, have a rotation of guys that they trust,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is huge.
Yeah.
Quarterback. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, it's really important for this day and age to have at least 6 very,
Right.
maybe even 7 competent offensive linemen.
Yeah, you almost need
that
3 guards and 3 tackles. It feels like
almost, and that's not a bad luxury for them to have all those guys and to have them under fairly cheap contracts with like Jonah Williams, especially because he's probably going to get the bag next year.
right. Or they're going to
So
replace him. They could always move on
yeah,
with Orlando
absolutely.
Brown there now. So,
Yep.
all right. So quarterback again, Joe Burrow. He's been a stud for a while now.
Yep.
There's really not much to say with Joe. I've been so wrong on Joe Burrow. It's
Good.
crazy. Like, going into year 1, I didn't see the upside because he doesn't have the strongest arm, right? And he's not mobile. He has no mobility almost at all. And still, last year, quarterback number 4, 36 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 4,500 yards. He did have 5 rushing touchdowns last year, it did help him. But 2 years ago in 2021, quarterback number 7, Joe Burrow, he is that dude. And I know that's an overused phrase, but he has that Tom Brady moxie, man. Like, it's just, he finds a chip with everything and he just uses it to win. Like, it's just so hard to bet against Joe Burrow. And the dude has just definitely proven me wrong, the last couple of years. So you love to see it for sure.
Agreed.
So yeah, not much to say about the quarterback. We can wrap that one up quickly. No. Now, the interesting part is probably the most interesting is probably the running backs. You got Joe Mixon back. Joe Mixon is back. There was all the offseason stuff, We do this all the time with players every single offseason, Tyreek Hill or whoever it is. Oh, this guy is never going to play again. And then he didn't even get cut. They didn't even draft anybody really. I mean, they did draft Chase Brown in the 5th round, but again,
they did. But yeah, I mean,
we don't trust 5th round running backs, but we do with Chase Brown. It's like, come on, guys.
Yeah, I agree. So, I think Joe Mixon's going to be fine this year. He is, but I feel Chase Brown could potentially hawk some touchdowns from Joe Mixon because that's more of his style.
Sure.
I do watch a lot of Big Ten football, and with him playing at Illinois, like he ran the ball down everybody's throat.
Yeah.
All the time.
He's good. He's a good player for sure.
Yeah. It's very good, and that's his style is just running it down people's throats. So
if he didn't go to Illinois, I think he would have gone in probably round 3.
I think he was fine going to Illinois because he plays in the Big Ten. Big Ten's broadcasted everywhere.
I just mean if he had more of a premier school, I think he would have got. I think he has the talent that if he got dragged down because he wasn't at a SEC school, right? Where if he went to any of the SEC schools, I think he would have been a 3rd round pick. He is pretty talented.
I would say that is not how it is anymore because some of the SEC schools are worse than some of the Big Ten schools.
I mean, Roschon Johnson was a 4th round pick.
I think it depends on where you go.
All right, fair enough.
It does. It does depend where you go.
All right, so obviously Joe Mixon is the leader in this backfield. Now, the question is, out of Chase Brown, Chris Evans, and Travion Williams, who do you think is going to get the 3rd down work? I think it's going to be... Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's going to be Travion Williams.
I think it's going to be Chris Evans, so
really?
we will see. We have no idea, but I think with losing Samaje Perine, there is a massive opportunity for one of these 2 guys, one of these 3. It could be Chase Brown.
Yeah.
But I think that whoever takes over that third down role, or maybe what their plan is, maybe they took Chase Brown because, like you said, he runs it down people's throats. Maybe they're going to give early down work to him and use Joe Mixon more on third downs, right? Because he does have that skill set, but for whatever reason, the last couple of years, they've been using him more on early downs, Samaje Perine on the passing downs and things like that. So, we'll see, but I think that there is just so much opportunity for Mixon, but also the other player that they go with. So we don't know who it's going to be. You're going to see a lot of people say it's going to be this guy definitively. Nobody knows. So, take it with a grain of salt there.
Yeah, no, I agree. And with Perine not being there, there are I think I heard that there's 60 something targets that are gone. And that's going to have to go to somebody,
right? And it's going to go to Irv Smith.
Yeah. Well, he was targeted 51 times last year,
right? So
those targets are going to go to somebody. I don't think it's going to be Irv Smith, but I think it's going to be.
Well, let's go to the pass catchers really quickly. So obviously Jamar Chase, talked about him earlier. He's a game changer, game breaker.
Absolutely.
They still have Tee Higgins. I actually think that, a lot of people have been talking that they're going to trade Tee Higgins or, they're not. I think they want to re-sign Tee Higgins. I think they want Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins and Joe Burrow on contract to just have this as the core of this offense for a long time. That's where Joe Mixon, he's not really important. The offensive line is important, and then these three players, and that's about it. That's the only pieces that they really want to build around for a long period of time, and I don't blame them. Tee Higgins is a good player. I do think he's being overvalued in dynasty circles right now. I still see Tee Higgins as a top 12 guy, and unfortunately for Tee Higgins, I don't think there's any world where he finishes as a top 12 guy in any season. With Jamar Chase on that team, it's just, through 3 seasons, wide receiver 28, wide receiver 24, wide receiver 18. Last year he played 17 games. Now there's a game where he played 1 snap, so it doesn't really count. There's a game where he had 16%. So, okay, he was a little banged up out of 15 games, but I don't see any world where he's really going to break. He had 7 touchdowns last year. He had 1,000 yards. What's going to change to take him to that next level to get him top 12? So that's my only thoughts on Tee Higgins. Do you have any, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he's always kind of been capped. I feel he's a good receiver, but he's not. I feel he's kind of I think he's I kind of view them as a AJ Brown and Devonta Smith. Kind of duo. Is that AJ Brown is the guy, and then Devonta Smith is just there to kind of catch passes and to do his thing.
And then they're both good, right? Tee Higgins and Devonta Smith are very, very good, but it's just when you've got guys like that ahead of you, it's just very hard to have 2 top 12 wide receivers consistently,
maybe annually.
There might be a year where they both finish up there, but consistently it would be very, very tough.
It's tough. It is tough.
I know a lot of people are high on Tyler Boyd still. I just don't really care for dynasty. He just doesn't really provide much. There's other players that I'd rather take a stab on if I needed somebody, even with an injury. There's a couple games where people got banged up and you're not seeing a massive spike in Tyler Boyd value. But, all right, let's get into the tight ends really quickly. And Irv Smith, specifically. The other tight ends on this roster, Devin Asiasi, Nick Bowers, Tanner Hudson, Drew Sample, Irv Smith. Out of all these guys, Irv Smith is by far the best pass catcher. Now,
absolutely, yes.
Is he going to be relevant for fantasy football? I believe that Irv Smith has talent. I think he's a very, very talented player, right? The problem is the health, right? Last year, for example, he played in 8 games, but if you look at it, he never really even broke. He had the beginning of the year, the first 6 games, he was averaging about 60% of snaps. Not crazy, but that's where most of his work came in, right?
Yeah.
But the other 2 games that he played, the other 3 games, he didn't even break 50%. So, you don't love to see that, but I just think that he is someone who is a goal line threat if he can stay healthy. nobody's been able to rely on him because he's been banged up. He played,
Mm-hmm.
he missed week 1. He only played a few snaps in week 1, then played 5 games, missed week 7, played week 8, missed until week 18 is when he came back. It's like, yeah, I get it. It's very hard to rely on the guy when you can't stay healthy, but I do think that there's potential there, and he's probably paired with the best quarterback that he's had so far. So I think that Irv Smith is just a decent dart throw. He's free basically in almost every league, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I
Yes.
like the dart throw on him, but I don't think he's anything crazy, right? Who would you rather have,
No,
though, Irv Smith or Tyler Boyd? Who do you think has a higher chance of being the number
I
3?
th- I still think Tyler Boyd. I feel they. I don't. I just don't think Irv Smith can stay healthy,
Fair enough.
and they don't. And last year they didn't really utilize their tight end that much.
Right,
Unfortunately, I mean, I think Hayden Hurst did a very good job last year, and I'm
right,
I'm really high on Hayden Hurst this year, in Carolina. But
right.
I feel that, but Hayden Hurst stayed healthy more often than what Irv Smith did. So
Sure.
that's the problem I have, is that I want players that I know are going to play, and I guess if he's free, he's free. But like, if you're paying up for the guy, don't bother. You know.
Right. So it is
So,
crazy. Like, if you actually look at it, Hayden Hurst had 70 targets last year.
uh
That's a lot, man. That's why
that's a lot.
I think
That's a
that
lot of targets.
I
Yes,
agree. I think that Irv Smith is just a better pass catcher than Hayden Hurst. It when
that's fair.
healthy, when healthy,
That's
right?
fair.
But again, I get your argument, and it's not a bad one that availability is the best ability, right? But
It is. It
I
is.
just think that if he can stay healthy, again, fluke injuries so far. He had the hand injury, he had a high ankle sprain. Like, it's a bunch of stuff that's not replicatable, right? It's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
Keenan Allen for a long period of time where, he's injury prone. Dude, it ruptured his spleen. Like, how many times are you going to do that in your NFL
Yeah,
career, right? So, yeah, I just think that there is potential. But again, if you can get him for like a 3rd, 4th round pick, take a stab on him. That's all I'm saying
absolutely.
for Irv.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Any last thoughts? That is all the
Nope.
changes for the Cincinnati Bengals. Again, I think that their defense, we'll touch on that quickly. I don't think that it got worse. I think that their secondary got a little bit worse.
Mm-hmm.
Their defensive front is still just as strong, but you could see their defense giving up a lot more yardage and a lot more points this upcoming season, which just means that more yardage and scoring
Yep.
opportunities for Joe Burrow, which, again, I'm not betting against him. So you'll love to see that there. So any last thoughts, Dale?
Nope.
All right. So that is the full recap of the Cincinnati Bengals. If you like the video, please leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel. We're going to be putting out tons of content all month long. If you have any thoughts, leave it down in a comment down below. We love to hear from you guys, and we appreciate you guys tuning in. So that said, thank you guys so much for joining us. And until next time, have a good night.